What's up, everybody? Welcome to a special edition of the Satsang podcast. Feeling a little feisty today, if I'm being honest. Some reoccurring neck pain. It's crept up today, but I feel committed to doing this episode because everyone's been asking for my take on shit. Not that it really matters what I think, but or shit, maybe it does, man. I don't know. But I also want to get to a Q&A because I knew if I asked you guys to ask me questions, you'd come up with the dopest questions ever. And you did. Yeah, man, it's a really heavy time to be a human being. I hope that everyone's doing good. I've been catching myself getting real angry, particularly on the social media, the internet. You can get crazy on the internet because you get riled up, man, and people say real dumb shit on the internet. Even, man, people that you would agree with most of the shit that they think or say or ideas they have politically, whatever. Even sometimes people that you mainly agree with, like, don't want you on their team or something. It's just crazy, crazy divisive times, and we got, two Neanderthal degrading brain lizards running for president, and Hunter S. Thompson warned us about this shit, man, but here we are. Anyway, I'm going to try not to get so angry. That's going to be my thing right now, even though I'm in pain, and even though people are being fucking idiots, I'm going to try to not join them in being a fucking idiot, because I am more than capable of being one of those. So I'm going to try to be love, if you will, even though it's damn near impossible. All right. We're going to get into some Q&A here. First, oh my gosh, I lost my breath. Oh man, first question. What moment in your career has been the most meaningful for you? You know, I honestly, I think playing the first time we played with Michael Franti, that just meant so much to me, dude. I mean, I was just such a fan. Like, it's not even the word, dude. I mean, I was like, just growing up listening to punk rock and hip hop, but also loving like singer-songwriters and folk music, dude. When I found Franti, I was just like, oh, you can do everything. You can just be everything. And he was a fucking activist and a dad. And I mean, so yeah, when we got asked to go on tour with Michael Franti, that was pretty much the coolest shit ever. Another huge one would be, and I can't even pinpoint when it was, but the first time, I believe it was at Harmony Park, we were playing I Am, and I stopped. I realized that the crowd was singing along very loudly, and I stopped at the end of the song for the last chorus and let the crowd sing it. Now we do this almost at every single show, and everybody there sung every word. And I remember, it's just a powerful feeling to be like, whoa, this thing that I thought only I was going through. I wrote it down in a fucking notebook, shared it with the world, and you guys related, enough to this song to listen to it enough times to know all the words. That was heavy. So yeah, dude, so many, and they still happen. I'm just stoked every time I get to play, man, and the fact that people come makes me really happy. Next question. Have you come through some of your toughest periods of adversity when it seemed like all the cards were stacked against you? I've spoke on this a lot. I've just kind of developed this mindset once I just started cleaning up my act, so I started with alcohol. And if you quit drinking alcohol, man, you find out who your real friends are pretty quick, because most people like to go out and drink, and it's awkward for them if someone in the party isn't drinking, So I say all that to say, once I did that, I kind of trimmed the fat off my life, and I got to know myself real well, and I kind of just made a decision that music is what I wanted to do. And, any time that we came up, whether it was a fucking band member quitting or selling 0 tickets or like whatever the thing was, I just always was like, this is when most people would quit. Like most bands get to this part, their transmission going out or whatever the fucking milestone is, and that's what kills them. And I just always was like, man, if I can fucking make it through this part, then I'm going to increase my chances of success. And the more things that I power through and get over, like the more likely it is that I'm going to succeed. So my relationship with tribulation just kind of changed, and I quit seeing it as adversity or as cards stacked against me. I started seeing it as like, ooh, this is one of those things. This is meant to weed out the people that aren't supposed to be here, but I am supposed to be here, so I'm not going anywhere. If that makes sense. And it's a real powerful thing when you start looking at the world that way, man. It's real crazy. The type of people that you draw to you, and the type of energy that starts to exude from your life. Speaking of energy, the next question, what does your diet look like? I know you're a pretty healthy dude that likes to stay in shape. Do you eat certain foods for certain reasons? I was a vegetarian for some time, I think 3 years. And I was drastically underweight. And I did protein shakes. I did lentils. I did I ate a lot. But I'm just like the most stereotypical ectomorph ever, man. I couldn't put on weight. Didn't matter how much I ate. I was just scrawny, 0 muscle definition. And so once I changed my diet, I started exercising too, and I started to just notice my body change. When I'm home, as we talk now, I've actually put on 30 pounds. I would guess 25 of it is muscle, if we're being honest. Since February, since the quarantine hit. But, my diet's real clean. If I do eat bread, it's only sprouted bread. I would say 99% of the meat that I eat is local. All of it's organic. I pretty much only get responsibly sourced meat. I drink a smoothie just about every day, which usually consists of carrot, apple, kale, celery, berries, banana, and then we have a really good vegan protein powder that we use because my wife's a vegetarian and doesn't do gluten. So, yeah, man, really clean, and I exercise 6 days a week. So, yeah, I take my diet real serious. I take it very serious. I like to feel good, man. I like to be healthy, especially, when I have, the rest of my body is seemingly turning on me. I think the least I can do is keep putting healthy foods in it. Along second part of that question, also, I wouldn't mind your take on Western school system. I know you have kids, and I'm wondering what you think about the school system. I think it's drastically underfunded. I think that every American history program needs to have a complete overhaul. I have a sister-in-law that is a math teacher, and she's going to hate me saying this. But I think that perhaps instead of teaching kids that aren't going to use it in their life, extremely high-level math, calculus, trig, and stuff like that, that we put a little more emphasis on knowing the actual history of this country, how it came to be, the people that were stepped on the way. If you listen to the podcast I had with Samir, I remember when I was in high school, I was reading Soul on Ice and just reading about Bobby Seale and Huey and Fred Hampton and Angela and all these people, but I wasn't, didn't learn about them from my school book. There was less than one paragraph on the Black Panthers in my school book, and then same thing, there was one paragraph about Malcolm. So I'd like to see an overhaul of history, but at the end of the day, it's a parent's responsibility to make sure that their kids know that. I bribe my children with money to learn cool shit that I think they should know. Which is a tactic. But, I was really passionate about my kids knowing who Angela Davis was, who Fred Hampton was, Huey, all the Panthers and kind of unsung heroes of that whole movement. So I told my oldest son, when I think he was a sophomore, he was, bitching about not having money. And I was like, look, man, I'll give you $20. You give me 7 pages on Angela Davis. Boom. He went and got that money. And then when this quarantine first hit too, I was having my kids do really cool assignments with me too. But yeah, it'd be cool to see a little bit more of an emphasis on, actual life skills. I think that's kind of a fading state. But what was your occupation before music? And if you couldn't make music, what would be your ideal occupation now? I love that question. Before music, I've worked at restaurants. I worked retail at a climbing shop. I worked at a ski mountain where I live. And did a couple different jobs up there. Construction. Man, I've done everything. Everything one could do in a mountain town for work. If I couldn't make music, what would my ideal occupation be? I would, especially if money wasn't an issue, my retirement plan is to teach jiu-jitsu. I'm only, a few years in on my journey, if you will, but I really would like to teach kids jiu-jitsu, starting out. But yeah, that would be my ideal occupation. When I'm older, not just teaching kids jiu-jitsu, but I'd really like to train fighters when I'm older. I hope to have a really thick knowledge base, when I creep into my 40s and 50s. And, a big thing that a lot of martial arts schools don't teach is mentality. And you get a lot of broken puppies that come to the sport, to combat sports, looking for guidance. And I just like to be one of those people there to guide, because I've seen it change lots of lives, including my own. Yeah. All right. So next question. Surely there are songs that you've recorded and written before you started Satsang. What and who was the catalyst to writing from a place of vulnerability and authenticity into this vibe we hear today? Has it always been from this heart center? Are there recordings from your past you can share that might not be what we are used to? Yes, but I will not share them. I have some recordings from a radio station from when I was 15 years old. My voice is really terrible because I'm not really singing. I'm like doing this thing where I'm kind of talk singing. From the back of my throat, not my belly. So no, I won't share them. But yeah, I think it's a big catalyst of listening to so much hip hop. All my songs have been really autobiographical, and I make sense of my own story by sharing it. So authenticity and vulnerability are, behind pretty much everything that I do. Not just music. I just try to always be there. And believe it or not, it causes more fucking trouble than good, really. It's cool that my vulnerability and authenticity has found a weird way to feed my family, which is killer. But, it also, if you're living from a place of authenticity all the time and don't really have a sick filter, you piss a lot of people off, which I'm sure that I do. And I apologize. I apologize for that. But, all right. Some may say, this is the next question, not me. Some may say the conscious music industry can be quite cliquey. How have you coped with it, helped to break that mold, and what are your techniques for remaining humble, not in a scene? Well, I guess I just don't really see I don't know what, really, I've touched on this in a couple of podcasts, the conscious music scene. I'm not really sure what that is. I know who you're talking about. I know the artist that you're talking about. But I don't think we sound anything alike. So it's so weird where it's like you can listen to all the punk bands from a scene and be like, yeah, man, those guys are all, that's definitely all East Coast punk, or East Coast hip hop versus West Coast. So I get what you're saying. Man, I really just try to stay in my fucking lane. Especially when it comes to making art. If I go into making art with any sort of, premonitions of what I want it to look like, I'll fuck it up, and it won't be authentic. Yeah, it relates back to the last sentence. I think we're all just showing up and, trying to express ourselves as authentically as possible. And that authenticity is what kind of clicks us together, if you will. I'm a real different cat too. I like to fight other grown men as a hobby. I hunt, I fish, I lift weights, I like to shoot, MMA, and I'm just into a lot of shit that I know not a lot of other artists are in. So that's kind of how I've helped break that mold. It's weird. Like, I obviously look at myself as a musician, but I just feel like in the past few years, I've transformed into so much more than that. Like, I'm a father first, a partner, a martial artist, an outdoorsman, a musician, a friend, I try to, like, that's what really helps me stay humble is, I can go on a tour and we can sell out all the shows and play all the festivals. And when I come home, I'm still going to get choked by somebody at the gym. And I think that makes me and my situation real special because not a lot of people hang out and actively pursue getting the shit kicked out of them by their friends. But I really love it. What is your go-to smoothie recipe? I touched on this earlier, but we'll break it down here. 1 Fuji apple, 1 handful of kale, 1 handful of baby carrots, 1 stick of celery, 1 handful of shredded cabbage, 2 handfuls of berries, 1 banana, 1 teaspoon of spirulina, 1 scoop of raw for living vanilla vegan protein. And I think that's it. But that's pretty much what I make. Oh, yeah, and pumpkin seeds. This is the fucking smoothie hack, dude, that nobody gets. Everyone's like, oh, yeah, I did the Vitamix thing. I did it just like to make it, but it's all chunky. I know this because I just forgot to put pumpkin seeds in the other day. And my wife was like, yo, what's this cold-ass soup you brought me? And that's what it's like if you don't get that. The pumpkin seeds make it creamy. It makes it all smooth. It makes it all kind of one nice, smooth, drinkable texture as opposed to a kind of thick and chunky, cold garden soup. Feel me? So that's it. What's the funniest tour story you have? Oh boy. Shit. There's so many good ones. There's so many that weren't funny at the time that looking back on them now are hilarious. One was we had left this festival in Oregon and we were driving through Eastern Oregon, which is pretty much just a desert. And we were going up this pass type situation, and the dude in front of us or behind us had a barbecue grill in the back of his truck, and it was very poorly rigged. And when he started passing us, I looked in my rearview mirror and I could see it moving in the back of his truck, and I was like, man, that shit is not in there. Well, wouldn't you know it, right when he went to pass us, the wind caught it just right, and it flew into the side of the van, shattered the window, and we had to chase this dude down to get him to pull over, and he ended up paying for the glass, which everything ended up fine, but it was a huge pain in the ass. And then right after that happened, the next day, we got that fixed. And then maybe not the next day, 2 days later, the front 2 ball joints went out. And was almost $1,200, and one of the control arms. My old van J-Lo used to really test me. Next question. What would be your advice as a woman opening her own yoga studio as far as grit, independence, and survival of her dream and sustaining? I would say first off to anyone that's chasing a dream, the first thing that you got to do is be realistic. If you are an experienced yoga teacher and you have the know-how to run a business, there's no reason you can't run a successful yoga studio. So if you can logically say that out loud and believe that and go, no, that's actually true, then nothing should stop you. Like I said, any sort of hardship, whatever that you might face, needs to be looked at as a test to try to weed you out. And you just keep passing those tests, and you will be successful. I believe that with all my heart. I think persistence and toughness go a long way. And yeah, there's a lot of people, like I was just having this conversation with Will, is that people just got to get realistic about their dreams. I love fighting. I love it. I love grappling. I love striking. I fucking love it. So much so that I take ridiculous amounts of damage to my body to do it. And I also am 100% aware, if I took some amateur fights, I know I would win a gang of amateur fights. But am I ever going to be like a successful fighter with the skill set that I have? Absolutely not. Could I sleep a bunch of amateurs? I think I could, for sure. But I know I would never be a world champion fighter. And I think it's important to do that. Like, I might be a good musician, but am I good enough to, you know what I mean? So I would say be realistic is number one. And otherwise, if you know that you have everything needed to succeed at something, don't stop. Don't let anything stop you. Is punk dead? No, punk is not dead. How dare you? Punk will last forever. All right, someone quoted a very, very old song of mine and said, how instrumental were mushrooms when you got sober / changed your life? Should I just tell the story? Here's the story. So I had been going off and on with sobriety. I'd stay sober 3-4 months. I'd fuck up. And then I'd go 3-4 months. And then relapse. And it just kept happening. And one time I was cleaning this shitty little basement apartment that I had that was infested with spiders, and I was listening to Terrence McKenna, and he said, if there's one thing that I've found to be true, it's that, if someone's really struggling with an interpersonal issue, eating a handful of mushrooms by yourself in the dark will help you get to the bottom of it. Not 5 minutes after that, a friend of mine that I had loaned a piece of climbing gear that I forgot I had even loaned it to, offered to repay me with just a handful of mushrooms. And I was like, weird. Okay. So I got these mushrooms, and then I came home, and then I was like looking at them in my hand and was like, oh, this is it. They were delivered to me, so I could work through this thing with, why am I white knuckling this drinking shit over and over? I couldn't do AA. I went to rehab, and, I did the 12 steps, but I still felt all fucked up, like I still wanted to drink. And every day I was just like telling myself, you can't drink. I didn't want to live like that. So I ate these mushrooms, and then I kind of tried to prepare myself. I've thought a lot about my dad and how abusive and shitty he was to me and my brother. I thought a lot about other adults in my life, and I put my heart into kind of a place of darkness, of just really mourning my life to that point, and how unfair and how violent and destructive it was, and how destructive I was to myself, trying to cope with it all. And by the time they kicked in, man, it wasn't I could talk for hours, but it wasn't an enjoyable experience. It wasn't like, oh yeah, man, it was like a Beatles song, and then I came out the other end super happy. It was the most intense, uncomfortable evening of my life. But here I am, 9 years. Was it 8 years or 9 years this May? 9 years sober, I think. No, 8. 9. 9 was 9 years. Holy shit. So yeah, that's all I really got to say about it. But me quitting alcohol was the beginning of everything. All right, next question. I want to know about your daily/weekly routine and what has moving toward more discipline helped you in your life. I equate every success that I have in my life to discipline, whether that's success monetarily, business-wise, becoming more proficient in martial arts, physical fitness, whatever. That discipline is everything to me. So daily routine, I wake up at 5:53 every day. That sounds weird, but the reason that I do it is so right when I'm done with making my tea, by the time I sit down at my desk, it's exactly 6 a.m. I don't do it as often as I should, but I'd say probably 2 or 3 times a week I meditate, and then I journal. Other times I just don't, I'm not really feeling it, and I know I should force myself to meditate, yada, yada, but some days I'm just not feeling it. Some days I just want to drink my fucking tea, and, as weird as it is, I'll usually throw a fight on, and I will drink my tea and watch a fight, and about halfway through the fight or my tea, I'll start to stretch and move my body a little bit as I watch the fight, and just try to get into my body. I have a lot of injuries and sources of chronic pain, so the morning it's really important that I have that alone time in the morning so I can work through the shit in my body and kind of get myself in the mind frame of like, okay, cool, today it's this nerve pain in my shoulder and this is going to be here for most of the day, and I need to prepare to deal with that. And this sounds crazy as I say it out loud, but and then I usually go upstairs and wake my wife up, but recently I haven't been having to wake her up. She has been getting up. And then I usually start making her tea while she's in the shower. And then I will make her a couple eggs. And then I make our son lunch before he goes to work. And then I am just kind of hanging out, usually shadow box a little bit in the living room while my wife's in the shower, and after everyone's lunch is done, and I wait for Malachi to wake up. And then when my son wakes up, it's on. I've been really trying to work on balance and having enough discipline to keep my fucking phone away from me so I can just be with my son. But it's kind of hard. We're in the middle of some big changes Satsang-wise. So, and then when my wife gets home at 4:30, I go to the gym and I lift weights, and then I come home and we do dinner and chill for a little bit and then go to bed and start over. And then twice a week, every Monday I go and I have therapy, and then I go straight from therapy. Well, not straight. I have therapy, then I eat, and then I go train for about 4 hours. 3 hours, 3 or 4, depends on who else shows up. And then on Thursdays as well, I get up and in the afternoon I go and train. Monday has been striking or leg locks recently, and then straight grappling on Thursday. Next question: favorite books? I'd say my favorite book of all time is Revolutionary Suicide by Huey P. Newton. I really liked Russell Brand's book, Revolution. I'm a big fan of the Bible. Common's newest book, Let Love Win, changed my life and convinced me to go to therapy. I always kind of had this weird stigma around it of like, nah, man, therapy is for like if you're in treatment or some shit. And I can tell you, especially if you like me and you got a lot of pride, and I pride myself on being the one that's like, nah, man, I don't have any feelings right now. I'm going to just move through this problem and I'm going to carry everyone with me. And, therapy's been a big place for me to really self-examine. And because of that book, it convinced me that going to therapy was cool. If Common goes to therapy, I should go to therapy. Tell the story of the most difficult thing that you had to endure emotionally and mentally. Crazy question. I've actually been thinking a lot about that thing. I'm sure my mom's listening, so I'm sure this is a shitty story for her to hear, because I don't know if she remembers it or what, but sorry if this hurts, Mom, but um, I think about growing up with my dad, my stepdad, who raised me. We called him Dad. We were with him 11 months out of the year. My earliest memory is literally of him at a Chuck E. Cheese. It's my very first memory, is staring at him at a Chuck E. Cheese. He was so mean to us. When he hit us damn near every day, and it was just under the constant fear of him. And when we were a kid, we would be home, and when you would hear him come home, your stomach would drop. It wasn't like, oh, dope, Dad's here. Your fucking stomach would drop. It sucked. But there's one particular incident that really rounds the whole thing out of what it's like to be an abused kid. I would have been 8 or 9. I was in 3rd or 4th grade. And we used to make our lunch the night before, and my dad had got home, and he asked if I made my lunch for tomorrow, and I said, yes, I did. And he looked in there, and there wasn't an apple. And I don't know what was going on in his day, but he picked me up by the throat, and he threw me into this set of cabinets. And then he looked at the cabinets and looked back at me. I don't remember if I broke the cabinet when he threw me into them or what. I'm pretty sure that I did. Or maybe a handle came off or something. But he then hit me in my face, and he hit me, imagine a 220-pound grown man hitting a 8-year-old in the face. You can imagine the variance of force to surface. Filled up my whole mouth with this taste of iron. Both my eyes went white. It fucking rocked me. I 100% is someone that gets, hit in the head a lot nowadays. I'm 100% certain he gave me a concussion. That's what we call ringing someone's bell, is when everything goes white and I kind of have that tunnel vision. But anywho, I remember later that night I was laying in bed and in the top bunk in my room. And my mom cracked the door to say goodnight to me, and I asked, how long is he going to do this shit to us? It's an 8-year-old version of that question. And she didn't say anything. She said goodnight, and she shut the door. And I remember in that moment just going, okay, no one's going to save me. I have to survive this. I had to survive. Yeah, it's crazy. It's been coming up a lot because I think that really framed how I looked at the world. I didn't look at life to be lived. I looked at it as something that needed to be survived. I'm trying to undo all that, but that's for sure the most difficult thing I've had to endure emotionally and mentally is, at the time it was dealing with the abuse itself. And then as an adult, it's like trying to undo all the weird shit that being physically abused every day does to your brain, and your nervous system. My wife attributes a lot of my chronic pain to that PTSD, but lighter familial question. Damn, we just went deep on that motherfucker. I'm fine though, you guys. So I love my life. I'm very happy. The reason that I'm so open is because I feel like through that openness I've been able to heal and forgive, and I'm fine. Or at least actively working on trying to be fine. Tell a story about your grandfather. Any variety, funny, philosophical, a favorite memory. It's funny, at his service we all had the same memory. My grandfather drove very, very fast when he was on the ranch or anywhere. But he would drive on these gravel roads, and he would have his open coffee in his lap, and he'd twist the lid off, and he'd pour that sumbitch while he was driving down this bumpy ass dirt road. Wouldn't spill a drop, put it down, put the lid back on, and then with his other hand open his can of chew, put a dip in, and he'd be looking at you and talking to you while he did all of these things while going 60, 70 on a dirt road. I just always remember him he was tough, but not tough not tough like my dad was tough. He was tough. He was cowboy tough, but he was a sweet man. He hugged us. He put his arm around us. He was just a sweet guy. And his whole world revolved around hard work and effort. And it's something that I know that is in me because of him. Actually, I'm looking at a picture of him right now that sits on my desk of him when he was probably in his early 30s on a ranch in the 60s. Just a fucking stud. He was a tough man, sweet, and just a little guy too. But I also remember him lying to my grandmother about not riding in a rodeo, and then he rode in a rodeo and broke his foot, and if my memory serves me right, he duct taped his boot to act as a cast, and walked around the whole rest of the day. Got a few more left. If you could touch on what happened to George Floyd, I think we could all use some peace and insight right now, and it's hard to have faith in our country. What are your thoughts on this? I think George Floyd was murdered by a fucking coward. They had 18 previous transgressions on his record and somehow was able to keep his job. I think he's one of many police officers that get persistent and continuous complaints of excessive force, of inappropriate action and wrongdoing on the job, that are allowed to keep their job because of the way unions are structured, that you have to damn near kill somebody to get fired. Or in the case of Breonna Taylor, not even that. Listen, man, I've seen all the numbers and I've seen the data, and I've also seen racism right in front of my face from law enforcement. It's a fucking problem, and I think there's a lot of answers to it, because I also have met, especially through martial arts, I've met a lot of cops that are good people, that are really good people. But there's so many overwhelming stories of good cops trying to report bad cops and them getting fired for it. So you kind of learn, it becomes this kind of don't ask, don't tell thing when it comes to violence, and a guy that I can sometimes listen to and respect as an intellectual thinker is Ben Shapiro, and he shared the numbers of white people versus black people killed by the police and those unarmed things, and of those numbers, how many were unarmed. And well, I think it's important to share that data. What it doesn't do is help, because we're not just talking about people being killed by the police. It's an issue of profiling and just inherent racism inside police departments. And if you've ever lived in a big city, you know that to be true. If you have close black friends, you know that to be true. If you have, ask somebody close to you that's black if they've ever had any issues with police. Every single one of my close friends that is black has multiple stories. So again, at the end of the day, the best way that I can put it is, I know as a white guy, I'm never going to have to tell my kid that he needs to be very weary of police officers and should be afraid of them. I wouldn't raise him to believe that he should, whatever, we don't need to go into that, but I believe what happened to George Floyd is the boiling point of something that's been boiling for a long time. And we as a country, since the civil rights, first we freed the slaves, and then there was Jim Crow, and the government kind of said, well, at least there isn't slavery anymore, and then we ended segregation and told black people, well, at least segregation isn't still here. And there's kind of been this fucking baby step here, and then the United States government and certain individuals and politicians will say, at least it's not as bad as it was. And then you have black people saying, can you just treat us like you treat you? It's so fucking simple, man. It's so fucking simple. And it's been made into such a complex, bullshit, nuanced, and I'm a huge fan of nuance, particularly when it comes to, expression of things. But this one's really simple, dude. Black people are literally just asking power structures and the police to treat them like they treat white people. It's not that much to ask, man. I don't know, man. I could go on and on for hours. I would say revert back to my last podcast with Samir. Big Samir from the Reminders. We touch on this a lot. I don't know, man. It's a fucking problem, and I'm filled with an insane amount of hope for the future, because the way we're seeing racial unity right now, and it really has become right versus wrong. And there's a sense of insane unity right now and cooperation. It's beautiful. I'm really grateful to be alive, to watch it happen. And I'm grateful that my kids are going to be raised in a world where they get to see a civil uprising and see the results of it. And we're always seeing that. All the people saying, I don't really get the points of the protests anymore. Well, look at all the fucking laws and everything that have been changed in this country by protests. It's literally only through civil disobedience that shit gets done in this country. So read a book. Fuck those police that killed that man. That's it. What are your favorite bands, biggest inspirations? You seem to have good taste. You speak highly of your wife. Let's go. We'll go step one first. Favorite bands. If we're talking hip hop, I would say anyone in that whole Soul Carrions crew. Common, Mos Def, Black Thought, or The Roots, Talib Kweli, The Reminders, Brother Ali. As a songwriter, like The Grateful Dead. It's probably my favorite band of all time. Neil Young, Tom Petty. Punk rock, I would say the U.S. Bombs, Anti-Flag, the Menzingers, the Clash. And then I really, really love all that old reggae, Desmond Decker, Prince Buster, all that old rocksteady, rude boy shit. Second part of that question. You speak so highly of your wife and seems to have such solid family values. Have you always had this attitude, or did you go through something that helped you become this way? Man, it's no secret, because I'm real open about it. I would not be who I am today without my wife. She really guided and escorted me through all of the growth and changes that got me to where I am today. I can't say enough about her, and as far as having a family, I mean, it's given me my purpose. That's why I chase everything with such a ferocity, and it's not I like that. It's I must have that, because it's not just me, it's for my family. So, and then the last part of that question is, when did you start playing guitar? 6th grade. All right, we got 2 more. What are your top 5 core values? Hard work, integrity, loyalty, respect, humbleness. How long did you book your own shows before having a manager? And what were your steps in between playing at bars to a few people to headlining a venue? Great fucking question, man. I booked my own shows for a while. I always had someone helping out. but it wasn't like an agent. It was just like, someone that knew more than me. And then I eventually just had them teach me their ways. And I self-booked and self-managed for a long time, And here's the infamous story of how I got a manager. I bumped into a guy named Brian Langoliers here in Montana, who was on the Yonder Mountain String Band management team. And I asked him not to be my manager. I said, hey man, could I sit down with you and pick your brain about some shit? And he said, yeah. So we met up and I told him where I was. I went to his office and told him where I was at my career and, just gave him the full 100% honest rundown of where I was at. And he said, essentially gave me homework and was like, here's 8 things that you can do. And when you get done with them, come back and see me in a few months and we'll give you a new list of shit to do. I said, cool. So he gave me this thing, man, and I just powered through it all the next week. I just did all of it, because I was home. And at that point, I still had a real job too. But I did everything on his list in a few days and came back and said, hey, man, can you give me some more shit to work on? And that left an impression on him, and he wanted to work with me, and he gave me a van and let me pay him. I mean, it was a shitty van, but but it got us around the country, and he let me pay him in really minimal installments. He fronted me my first batch of merch, of real merch, like, 2 t-shirts or a men's shirt, a women's shirt. And, he just really believed in me. And it was through that work ethic, that he continued to believe in me, and I always just did everything I said I was going to do, and I did it right after I said I was going to do it. And, as far as, I didn't just get a manager and then poof, we started selling tickets. It was kind of quite the opposite. We played a lot of shitty shows. It's weird. I don't really know the steps in between playing at bars to headlining venues. I mean, we headlined venues and played for nobody. Getting out of the bars, the best advice I can give someone, if you are, like, say you live in Chicago, the worst thing that you can do is keep playing those, like, 3-hour brewery gigs where you play once a week. Now, if you're just trying to make money as a musician, then, like, run that shit and do it. But you have to build a demand, right? So when we started in Billings in Montana, we didn't do a weekly gig or anything like that. We tried to play once every 2 months, once every 3 months, and keep spreading it out, so people wanted to come and they'd pay the $7 because they knew they wouldn't get to see it again for a little while. So it's important to get that hard ticket number. So when you're having a conversation with someone, you can say, hey, well, we sold 85 $10 tickets last time we were here, so here's where the money should be, So you got to try to get hard tickets. And really just focus on making dope music, because the doper your music, like, people will listen to your shit. Like, that's the big thing for us, is like, we don't have a giant Instagram. I won't fucking buy followers or do any of that other bunk shit that all these other clowns do. But at the end of the fucking day, man, people are listening to our music. Like, 160,000 a month. So it's like, just on Spotify, we do the numbers last month. There was like 250,000 different people listening to the shit. So, like, that's important, dude, is you gotta, like, make music from an authentic place, and hope people listen to it, because that to me is more important than anything. It's more important than Instagram likes. It's more important than fucking merch sales. Like, as long as people are listening to my shit, that's all I really care about. Yeah. Last question was, how do you overcome? I feel like I pretty much touched on that a whole bunch of different ways. I stay vigilant. I stay strong. I stay disciplined. Keep moving, baby. Keep moving. That's all we can do. So, I love y'all, and I'd love to do I love to do one of these solo joints every once in a while, to check in with you guys. So we'll do another post. If I didn't answer your question, I'm sorry. I thought I got all of them. If I missed, I'm sorry. But we'll do another one. So keep your eye out for a post. Hope y'all dug. Thank y'all. Thanks for listening. Later this week, we got Benson Henderson, fucking world champion MMA fighter, multi-time Arizona State grappling champion, All-American wrestler, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, black belt, and IBJJF world podium placer. He's a badass. And a real sweet guy. So that's the next podcast. But like I said, we'll do another one of these. So keep an eye out and drop some questions next time. Big love, y'all. Take care of yourselves. Peace.